Alright y'all, Steven here with another video for our Comms 4365 Section 02 Nonverbal Communications class. The chapters this week went over
Proxemics.
I had to look it up, it's Proxemics. I didn't know how to pronounce it. But pretty much what Proxemics is personal space, which is referring to your personal bubble, your territory, and your environment. So the first chapter was chapter 3. I was reading, and one of the things that the chapter went over was how students, the book says specifically from 1st to I think 7th grade, as they grow older, their personal space becomes, they want it to be bigger. Their personal space becomes bigger. And this made me think of whenever I was in high school, I would go with teachers in elementary school and I would do like a student teaching thing. And for the first graders that I had at first, they were super brave. I felt like none of them had personal space at all. Like girls would come up to you and be like, "Oh, I like your hair," and just start touching you. And the teacher would see it and be like, "Hey, don't do that." And I'd be like, yeah, that's not a good idea to touch people in class. But they had almost no boundaries for personal space. That was 1st grade, and then the next class that I taught was 5th grade, and it seemed like they were a lot more kind of like socially aware, spatially aware, and they definitely wanted their personal space a lot more. So reading that in the book really made me think about my teaching experience with those kids that I had whenever they were in elementary school. The next thing that I was reading about was the end of page 70. It was talking about a study done about attractiveness and how the people who approach you, how you perceive them whenever they approach you, their level of attractiveness, how it differs your experience whenever they approach you. So the experiment, the study that they did was that people were on like a crosswalk, and as they were walking by, one woman would go up to a man, and the book said that they would intrude on them, and then another, like, here's the woman, and she would go up to the man, and she would intrude on him. I guess she would, like, I don't know, maybe try to get his number or something. And then after he would walk past her, after that experience with her, someone else was down here asking him questions about what he thought about that experience, or that interaction with the girl. And they had one girl who I guess was more attractive than another. And obviously the times whenever the girls were more attractive to the men, which is pretty objective, but they obviously gave more positive feedback on their interactions with the women. And what that reminded me of is those YouTube prank videos. There's always those videos of a guy, like, he approaches a woman and she's always like, "No, don't talk to me, I don't have any time to talk to you," or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then he goes and gets in like a Lamborghini or some crazy exotic car. And she's like, "Wait, is this your car?" And he's like, "Yeah, why?" And she's like, "Well, maybe I can have some time to talk to you." It reminded me of those type of YouTube videos, but I feel like this study that they were conducting, I feel like could have been a YouTube video like that, kind of like a social experiment. And I could imagine like people having their reactions and the type of questions that they could answer whenever they're asked about their experience whenever the girl approached them. So I think that was kind of funny. Alright, the next thing, and this was on chapter 4, the book differentiated between the term crowding and the term density. So crowding is pretty much, in the book, it described it as your perception that there's not enough space. Density, on the other hand, refers to the amount of people in a given space. This reminded me of is concerts, and more of what's it called, festival, like music festivals, where there'll be a stage set up, a bar and then just people behind the bar who are just standing. And whenever they play the music, everybody dance, jumps, everything like that. And a lot of times whenever I'm in, I went to Miami 2 summers ago for Rolling Loud. And a lot of times I would look at people in the crowd and I would kind of see people, whenever it was so crowded and dense, how they would try to guard their personal space. And I would have my own strategies for this. Because whenever you're in the crowd, there is literally no personal space, at all. There's literally someone here, there's nowhere to escape unless you start trying to get your way out. But whenever I try to guard my personal space a little bit, how I do that is I'll put my arms up, maybe not like this, but I'll be standing and I'll put my arms up and I'll whenever people jump into me too close, I don't want them hitting my body. So I try to keep my forearms up and I'll push them away like that. If I'm recording, I'll have one hand up or whatever, and then I'll have the other hand guarding myself. But a lot of I'll never have both my hands up. I mean because that's just people too close to my body and too close to my face. So that was pretty much whenever I was reading through the crowded and the density, I'm thinking, okay, the most crowded places I've been have definitely been in these concerts where it's people who are complete strangers, who are really, really close to you, sweaty, breathing hard, trying to dance to the music. And the person that you came with is way over there because they got lost in the shuffle of the crowd. And yeah, it's usually pretty crazy. The last thing that I was going to talk about is in the book it discussed 3 types of territories. There's public, interactional, and home. So you got public, interactional, and home. And home specifically, the book, whenever it went over home, it talked about living with roommates, which I'm sure a lot of you do. And whenever your roommate invites someone over, the problem that they have whenever people come into their territories is that the roommate will invite someone that the other person that they're living with, the roommate, that they don't like. So if they're using the kitchen or something like that, you wake up, you're like, oh, this person, that's a big problem whenever you're living with roommates because they're inviting people that you don't like into your home. This reminded me of a good story. My friend told me this. It didn't happen to me. It happened to my friend, but this is what this reminded me of. It was him and 4 other guys hanging out in their living room in their kitchen. And the way his house is set up is you open the front door and you immediately go up the steps to the kitchen and the living room. And one time they're all chilling, all 5 of them, I think. And they heard the door open and he goes hey, hello? And he's like, yeah, what's up? He's like, can I come up? And then somebody was just yeah, sure. Because they were expecting other people to get there. But whenever the guy came up, another guy who was sitting on the couch is like, hey man, what's up? How's it going? And he's like, oh, how's it going? So everybody else in the room thought that these 2 people knew him. So the guy came in up the stairs, sat at the table, and he was talking for a while. Or no, he was just sitting there pretty much on his phone. And then eventually everybody started looking around. They're like, who is this guy who just came in? Eventually they realized that nobody knew who he was. He was just a random stranger that came into their home, into their territory. And the book used the word defiled whenever people come into your territory or your home, whenever they're uninvited. I'm pretty sure they all felt very defiled in that instance because, they literally were just standing there. Then eventually my friend, he was just like, hey, who are you, to the guy? And he was just like, oh, I'm looking for whoever. And then he was like, nah, bro, or he or she doesn't live here. You need a bounce, you need to go. And eventually he kicked him out. Luckily, nothing happened after that. It was just a really spooky, creepy moment for all the people that were living in the house at that time. So that was just an instance where I'm sure some of those people felt really defiled for someone who was not invited, not necessarily invited, coming into their house and kind of just intruding on their territory. So, but that was the things that I wanted to go over and talk about from these 2 chapters, chapter 3 and 4, Proxemics. I thought it was a really good chapter. I will look forward to the next one and look forward to watch y'all's videos. Bye.